I messed up. All right, okay. So it's the first time for the ACP this morning to talk about something related to the mental health, and we're so glad and we're so blessed to have Sarah with us. Okay, so Sarah, she holds a PhD from University of San Francisco, UCSF, and she's a psychologist. And me personally, there's a lot of common friends and common relationships between my family and her family. So yeah, so it's a blessing. So we're so glad to have Sarah with us this morning, and we hope that this is a very important topic because the idea of mental health is something so crucial and so important for every one of us. We need to have something like an insight what's going inside of us. Sometimes we're hit by a lot of things that we're not able to deal with. How to deal with some things. Of course, today everything is changing every day. We see a change in our lives, and there's a lot of surrounding things that might affect our mental health, affect a lot of things. How to understand that, how to have an insight on how to deal with all of these stuff. Most of that Sarah is going to talk to us about this morning. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Good morning. Be mindful of the time. So, how's everyone doing? It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate your time. Before I get started, I do need to highlight that although I am a clinical psychologist, I am not your psychologist. I am not entering into a relationship with you, so please don't sue me. I am giving you some medical guidance, and I encourage you to, of course, follow up with your primary care. As you all know, this is a nonprofit, and by law, I have to disclose those things. So now that I got that all out of the way, let's get talking about stress and anxiety. So I appreciate you being here because typically on a Saturday, most individuals don't invest in their well-being, and we should. No one else is going to advocate for your health. And when we think of health, we're often so focused on the physical, not paying attention to the mental, which, as we all know, if you're not mentally doing well, it will affect you physically. And today I'm going to share with you just how we can do that. So what I'd like to start with is I want to review what stress is. I imagine you've never experienced stress in your life. You have no idea what I'm talking about, right? Of course we've experienced stress. Does anybody know where the term stress comes from? It's not a medical term. It was actually a term that we took from physics, and it means the amount of force required to break something. That was the best way medicine could define what's happening to the human body when it is going through an intense amount of pressure, typically from an external source. Sometimes it's internal, and we'll talk about how that's a little different. But stress is something that is normal. It happens to all of us. And in many cases, it was to be expected and anticipated. One of the other issues that often comes up is people saying, I just have too much stress in my life. My life would be so much easier if the stress went away. That's kind of sad, because sometimes stress is also a good thing. Weddings, new babies, going away overseas on vacation. Those are fun things, also very stressful. And so we don't want to completely get rid of stress. We want to be more resilient so we know how to handle it. And so one of the things I want you to be mindful of is when individuals suffer frequent and chronic stress, one thing after the other, that it starts to really impact the body. And we can't eliminate stress. We can decrease it, so we'll work on that. But we can also make you essentially more resilient. So back to my amount of force required to break something, it would be like giving you reinforcement. For those of you who know my parents, my father's a civil engineer. I use a lot of bridge metaphors. And if you've ever driven across an old bridge, you might notice a sign that says stress load or capacity. And it's funny because now I always use those signs. And I think, oh, it needs to be more resilient, it needs some reinforcement. I know somebody, right? But what if it's the human body? I also happen to know somebody. And so that being said, I want to talk about some of the things that's happening in your body and why it's happening. We were designed in such an amazing way. God did not make mistakes. Everything and how we're designed, including our mind, was made to help us perform. And sometimes some parts of our body might get a little too enthusiastic, including our stress response. So that being said, stress is something that helps your body adjust to a new situation. For example, I drove down today from Danville. My navigation changed its mind a few times, that was fun. And my body had a tiny bit of a stress reaction to be anticipated. Wait, am I taking 17 or am I taking 101? No, wait, I'm in the wrong lane. Elizabeth was patient with me. She's like, no, we'll be fine, don't worry, I'll make you turn, right? Sure, but you know what else physically was happening? My heartbeat accelerated a little bit. My knuckles got a little tighter on the wheel. I was focused. My pupils also probably were a little bit more focused. It was a stress reaction. It was helping me pay attention and be sharp. So I could change lanes quickly without hurting anybody and being safe. That's a normal stress reaction. I need that. We all probably have that if we're driving in the middle of a storm, right? And you're in a new neighborhood. You're gonna be a little bit more focused. As opposed to on a sunny day, there's no traffic and you're driving home. You're on autopilot, right? My mom often jokes, she's like, the car knows the way. I don't even know how I got home. The car just drove me home, right? She's like, that's easy, right? But imagine when it's more stressful, we're gonna be a lot more sharp. And the body is doing that to help us so that we are performing and we're staying safe. So stress has good intention. And actually, a little bit is good for you. You may have heard before of performance stress or stress anxiety. Anybody ever heard of those? Have you ever experienced those? I've taken a lot of exams in my life. Let me tell you, test anxiety is very real. And actually, a little bit helps you do better on an exam. And so here you can see the idea, if you have too little stress, you're too relaxed, you're actually more likely to be careless, right? You ever walk into an exam? I always think of the school system when they do those tests where they're just trying to build curves and they say, this isn't gonna affect your grade. Well, then why should I try, right? I remember kids making patterns on the bubble sheet, right? They weren't even trying because they're like, oh, that's my grade, there goes our performance, right? But if you tell me this is what's gonna make you licensed, your entire life and 12 years of college comes down to this exam, you better believe I was extremely stressed. And ideally, I would be right before the fatigue because it's going to make me sharp. I will double check my answers. I will pay attention repeatedly to the amount of time on that 4-hour exam to make sure I don't run out of time. And I have the time to go back and double check my answers. I didn't skip anything. I'm more likely to read the question. You know those fun questions where they say, which one of these is not, the right answer? And I'm like, oh, geez. Or they ask you, which one is the best answer? Well, they're all pretty good, but you want the best, right? Those exams are fun, and I'm sure we've all had some of those. And so when I think of those, that was a stressful time. But hopefully, I had just enough stress to help me perform well. Well, I'm licensed and I'm here, so I must have worked out. But that's just one example, and I'm sure you've all had some in your life where you thought, okay, I was actually a little more sharp, and that helps. The issue is when it's too much, when it's too many stressors, when you are no longer at your optimum. Now my body is fatigued, and I'm being affected by the stress. Poor sleep, headaches, stomach upset, snappy, irritable. Now I won't perform well. You ever take an exam where you're like, wow, it was finals week, and it's the last exam of my finals. I can't believe I answered that question wrong. I know that. And it was fatigue, it was stress, right? Or I used to be a college professor as well, and I've had students turn in exams where they forgot the back page. I'm like, what happened? You were my best students. And they're like, I was so tired. I'm so sorry, I didn't realize there was a back on that, right? I was usually nice and let them finish it. But, right? It's tough because now we're going to go into too much stress or burnout, mentally and physically. So from a physiological component, what is happening? There are a number of chemicals being released in your body when you go into fight or flight. Anybody ever hear of fight or flight, right? Fight or flight. You ever heard about the third option? Fight, flight, or freeze. So I would like to compare this to pets. I love dogs, right? And I know most of us probably have a pet, right, or grew up with a pet. And you can see there's the dog that goes to the dog park and just looking to pick a fight. And it's funny because it's usually a small chihuahua, right? There's a fight mode, right? Then you have the dog that's scared of everybody. Again, usually the big dog with the tail between the legs that's shy, it's always timid, it's in the corner. We had a dog that would get so scared that her tail was always between her legs. And it didn't matter who it was. She was constantly in flight mode, right? We'd have to calm her down and be like, it's fine, right? This is a friend. And then you have some that enter freeze. The freeze, when you're in a stressful situation and your body doesn't know whether to fight or flight, it will indeed freeze. The most common is the deer, right? People always hear that statement, I was like a deer in headlights. Something happened, I didn't even react, I didn't even know what to do. Or possums. Anybody here know what a possum does when it's stressed out? It will play dead. Yeah, I had a patient once find a possum in her garage. She had just moved, and she thought it was dead. Yeah, it wasn't. It was not a good story. Poor thing. Scared her in the room, and yeah, they play dead. They freeze so good that the possum realizes I'm not a good fighter and I'm not very fast. And for those of you who don't know what a possum is, the best way to describe it is like a really big rat, right? Yeah, they don't look fun. She thought it was a chinchilla or somebody's pet. But the reason I share that with you is we're all kind of designed to go into fight or flight, and sometimes we freeze. And that's to help us perform better. And you will have a stress reaction, regardless if the stress is physical or psychological. Let me give you an example. If I'm driving home and debris falls off the back of a truck in front of me, my body will go into, right, fight or flight mode. I will tighten my grip. I will probably, hopefully, try to flight and get out of the way, right? And so that I'm not being hit. But what if it's something along the lines where I'm walking my dog and I see a bobcat, right? Or worse, what if I'm walking with my children and I see a loose animal? I will probably go into mama bear mode, grab them both, I have twins, grab them both. And I will do some calculations of, am I bigger than this animal and can I kick it? If it's a wild turkey, I feel pretty good, guys, I'm not gonna lie. I get a lot of wild turkeys in my neighborhood. I feel good about I can fight it. And it's an instinct. You don't even think about it, it happens lightning fast. And in some cases, you may run. If it's a bobcat, I might have to think about how fast can I be, but I'll probably try, right? And in some cases, people freeze. This also happens if I go to the mailbox and I open it up and there's a letter from the IRS. Oh, that sounds fun. They're not writing to say hi. I'm going to have the same reaction. My heart rate is going to increase. My muscles are going to get tight. My stomach acid will increase. My body goes into fight or flight mode. It is designed to help me perform better in case I need to fight the mail or in case I need to run from the mail. But my body has good intentions. It thinks it's helping me survive. My biggest threat in that moment is a paper cut. But my body is perceiving that threat like the bobcat, like the debris off the back of a truck. And so physically, I'll have the same physiological reaction. There's a cool override button, and that's your cognitions, your thoughts. You can change how you perceive that. Remind yourself, this is only a lie. They only want some proof from something from 3 years ago. I know I filed my taxes correctly. I will submit this. They will